States than you are in Australia right now.
You're talking NBA basketball. You're talking great teams. You're talking great individual players.
Takes it off, and there's number 23, and of course Johnny goes nuts.
So I'll get goosebumps thinking about it now.
I just tried to go out there and play my game.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Adam. I don't like anybody. I'm not a people person.
Strand, you made the pass, yes. Christian, can you catch the ball? Yes.
All the stars were aligned and all the muscles fired at the right time, and I was able to get off the ground and throw one down.
I was saving that as a surprise for you.
And now, introducing your host for In All Airness, Adam Ryan.
Welcome to episode 7. Thanks for joining me. Go to inallairness.com for show notes and plenty more features. The social hub for the podcast is facebook.com/inallairness. If you haven't already, please like the page and join the growing community of fans. Add the podcast to your RSS feed or iTunes so you never miss another show. It's also available on Stitcher, BlackBerry, Player FM, TuneIn Radio, and numerous other podcatchers. I love hearing from listeners. On either site, you can send voicemail comments or questions. With your permission, I'd love to include your feedback on future episodes. You can follow me on Twitter @inallairness. My guest today is a legend at Ohio State University. He had a 5-year career in the NBA and has a championship ring to his name. He also had a successful post-NBA career, playing professionally in Europe, and is now assistant coach at Bowling Green State University. Dennis Hopson, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. Now, recruited following a strong final 2 years of high school basketball, your junior year at Ohio State was arguably your breakout season. You averaged 21 points, 6 boards and 2 assists. And as a senior, you were All-American, your Big Ten Player of the Year, and the second leading scorer in the nation with 29 points a game, and also 8 boards, 4 assists and 2 steals. Do you mind just talking about your career at OSU and the developments in your game that put you on the NBA radar?
Well, my first couple of years at Ohio State, actually my freshman year, I played spotty minutes. Actually, I shouldn't say I played spotty minutes. I did play. And what happened was we had a kid, he was a junior when I was a freshman, and he became ineligible. So that allowed me to play more and actually start some games. And it was one of those things to where when you go to college after being recruited out of high school, I knew how to play basketball, but I was probably one of the players that was my ability allowed me to be successful when I was in high school. But the college level, you have to be able to play the game from the neck up. You have to become smarter. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, I think early on in my career in college, I just played the game. And then as time went on, being under Coach Eldon Miller, he was a great fundamental coach. So as time went on, I understood a lot about what I was doing depending on the situation versus just trying to do something like, a young player would do. Mm-hmm. I finally got a good feel for the game. And again, he was a big fundamental guy. And like you said, when I got to my junior year, averaging, actually leading the team in scoring, a lot of it had to do with me, again, just understanding the game, knowing where I could get my shots from, teammates understanding my game and knowing how to get me shots. And we actually won the NIT my junior year, and Coach Miller had gotten fired after my junior year. And Gary Williams from actually he was at Boston College from Maryland. He came in, he was at Maryland, finished up at Maryland. He came in and coached me my senior year. I know for a lot of guys, and myself, it was a scary situation because playing under Eldon Miller and playing pretty well for my first 3 years and getting better each year, now you're going to have a new unknown coach. And is that coach going to allow you to do what you're capable of doing, or is it going to be a coach that's going to be that's going to restrict you? And I think going into my senior year, after playing with Brad Sellers my junior year and watching him get drafted, I knew I had a chance. I finally knew that I had a chance my junior year, and it was one of those things to where I didn't want that chance to be taken away from me. So me being the senior, I was a little nervous about who was going to come in. Not knowing the unknown was tough. But when they hired Gary Williams, I just kind of jumped for joy. And the reason being was we played them when he was a coach at Boston College my junior year on national TV in the Garden. And they completely destroyed us. I mean, they destroyed us. And his style of play was so energizing, so energetic to where, again, not knowing where he was going to play me, but I knew playing under that type of playing that style of basketball would allow me to use even more of my talents. And that's kind of the way that I played in high school. And sure enough, when Gary got the job, playing that up-tempo basketball, I mean, you just go from, like you said, averaging 21 points to 29 points, which is a big jump point-wise. But I have to give a lot of credit to him because of his style of play and him allowing me to play and do my thing.
And also, your numbers across the board really increased as well. You averaged 8 boards a game and 4 assists and 2 steals, so you had an all-round game. And I guess his style of play definitely suited your athletic running game.
Yeah, it did. And I think to be that all-around player, I've kind of always been the all-around player. I think I pride myself on making the pass, rebounding the basketball, getting steals, scoring the basketball. And a lot of that had to do with me idolizing Magic Johnson. Now, I know I wasn't Magic Johnson, but, I just loved the way he played because for one, he was a team guy. And for two, he knew what it took to help his team win. And again, you just can't be a scorer if you want to be efficient as a player. You need to be able to do everything. And again, I prided myself on trying to do everything when I was on the floor.
Excellent. And by having that well-rounded game in college, particularly in that final season, it obviously helped you going forward come NBA draft day, which we'll get to shortly. Thanks to the wonders of YouTube, I was able to watch your record-breaking performance in March 1987 when you became Ohio State's all-time leading scorer, eclipsing the previous mark held by Herb Williams, who himself enjoyed a solid 18-year NBA career. Do you remember that moment, and how does it feel to still be OSU's all-time leading scorer ahead of such luminaries as John Havlicek and Jimmy Jackson?
You know what I do, Adam? I do remember the moment like it was yesterday, and I think the reason being is because it's always being brought to my attention. It's not something that's gone unnoticed. A lot of people appreciate my efforts, and they always tend to remind me of the shot.
Now they start cheering. They come to their feet all the way up in the top deck of St. John.
Now this is a little pressure on Dennis Hopson.
Everybody waiting, so he'll give it a try. 2,012 points for Dennis Hopson.
It was one of those things again to where when I started at Ohio State, I don't even know if I paid attention to who was the all-time leading scorer. And again, after being able to score the ball, it's kind of brought to your attention. Hey, you're such and such, or so far away from becoming Ohio State's all-time leading scorer. And I think once I found that out, it was a sense of motivation. I think everybody needs some type of motivation to drive them, and it was that type of motivation that drove me to go in games night in and night out and just and play my hardest and put pressure. I put pressure on myself to be that guy, and I was just fortunate again playing under Gary Williams. And playing with great teammates. I mean, I can't take anything from my teammates because a lot of teammates get jealous, but my teammates were great, and they respected my ability, and they allowed me and they looked for me to score the basketball. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I am reminded of becoming the all-time leading scorer often. I get fan mail in the mail, and people talk about that, and again, it was like yesterday. It was a big night for me and my family.
Excellent, and certainly something to hang your hat on, no doubt, even all this all these years down the track. It was also great to see Herb Williams was courtside at that game. So once you made that the bucket that got you the record at the time, the game stopped, and for a few minutes there, the crowd celebrated, teammates, coaches celebrated with you, and then Herb Williams was also there to pass the torch, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Herb is again, he's a class guy, and again, there's been a lot of class and great players that's played at Ohio State, and to be among those great players that have played at Ohio State, and the ones even after our careers at Ohio State, it's just an honor. And again, with me being the all-time leading scorer at one of the highly recognized universities in the country, it's a big honor. I mean, it's a big honor, and it's one of those things to where if some of the guys probably would have stayed in school, not come out their junior year, I mean, I'm sure that record would have been broken, but hey, they came out, and I'm still the all-time leading scorer. Now, I know one day records are meant to be broken, and somebody will come along eventually, and they will break the record. But while I hold it, it's an honor to hold it. Definitely.
Now, your Buckeyes made it to the second round of the NCAA tourney in 1987. You had a super stat line of 32, 6, and 5, defeating one of my favourite players ever, Rex Chapman, and his Kentucky Wildcats in that first game of the tournament. However, you lost by 3 points to top-seeded Georgetown in the second round. What are your memories of that tournament, and particularly playing against players such as Rex Chapman?
You know what? I don't know if you follow Rex on Twitter, I sure do. But Rex, we follow each other, and he's always talking about that night haunted him big time when we beat him, and it was one of those games to where again. I was motivated. I was motivated. Win, lose, or draw. I don't care who we were playing. I was motivated. I think at that time, Kentucky was always a well-known and still is a well-known big-time program. So, your motivation to go out and compete and play hard and play the game smart in the right way, and you had to do that. You had to do it because, again, it was a big-time program. And if you didn't play right, they were going to beat you. And I think that night we were just clicking on all cylinders. And I think the biggest thing was we didn't care that it was Kentucky. We didn't care. Some people would get intimidated by the name on the shirt. We didn't get intimidated. We went out and we took care of business, and we won that game. And the next night or a couple of nights after when we played Georgetown, it was the same type of situation. We came up on the short end, but it was one of those things to where it was a very aggressive game. It could have went either way. I think we actually helped Charlie Smith get a name because he actually came in and carried them and did a nice job for them and helping them win that night when they beat us. But again, that game could have went either way. Reggie was a big time player, and actually I was a big time player at the time, and we both knew that. We both knew that the positions that we played, he could have been number one at that position, or I could have been number one at that position. That's just the way it was going to go. And it was a hard fought game. He played well, I played well, and we came out on the short end. But hey, I wouldn't give up that opportunity and that night for anything because, again, playing against Georgetown, losing by a couple points, it's any basketball player's dream to play against good competition, and that night was great competition.
It sure was, and they were your final two games of your college career, so that leads us nicely into the 1987 NBA draft.
Right.
At Felt Forum in New York, you were picked number 3 by the New Jersey Nets. Can you recall the emotions that you experienced hearing David Stern call your name?
And David Stern now is going to announce the selection of the New Jersey Nets.
The New Jersey Nets select Dennis Hopson of Ohio State.
Dennis Hopson with his Carl Lewis-like haircut. The great guard from the Big Ten, Ohio State.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things to where I don't think, well, I know I wasn't like the kids are today. If you ask a little kid what he wants to do at the age of 10, he's going to tell you he wants to be some type of professional athlete. I don't think that I followed the game of basketball that way to where if you would have asked me something like that, I would have told you that I wanted to be a professional basketball player. I might have said a professional race car driver or a truck driver, but, you know, it's one of those things to where I finally got a feel for, or I finally understood who I was in regards to maybe becoming a professional athlete after my junior year in college. And that's when I started understanding or paying attention to NBA, because again, Brad Sellers was a senior on that team, and he got drafted. So when you get picked by David Stern or he calls your name on draft night, again, it's just one of those things to where you say, man, oh man, did my work pay off that much to where I'm sitting here amongst all these other great players, and somebody's thinking that highly of me to work for them and pay me a lot of money to do it. So it's again, that's one of those things to where you look back and say, hey, that's something that could never ever be taken away, and it's something that will never ever be forgotten.
And you had a fantastic draft class as well. There's some incredible players amongst those top 20, 30 picks. Your draft class included Chicago Bulls' own Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant, picked number 5 and 10 respectively. Pippen was actually picked by Seattle. However, his rights were traded to the Bulls in exchange for Olden Polynice.
Right.
With a common link as top 10 draft picks, some of whom became teammates at the highest level with you. Did you stay in contact with any of those fellow draftees during the NBA time or beyond your NBA career?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, we talked, and actually again, I knew somebody that worked at the school that Scottie Pippen played for. So, you know, I would hear about him and never got a chance to see him on TV play in college. But you hear a lot of nice things about him through a friend of mine that was a friend of his. And Horace, I knew Horace because, again, you could see him play on TV. And, again, it's one of those things to where you kind of you evaluate your class, I think. You know, when I'm a senior and I want to know what my competition is, so you kind of pay attention to your class. And you might have, you know, I didn't talk to these guys personally on the telephone before, draft time, but again, after the draft, you know, you meet these guys finally in person if you hadn't played against them, and you become friends. And again, seeing Horace and Scottie at the reunion, the Bulls reunion last year, it was good to see them because, again, you talk to them, but you hadn't seen them in a while. You see them on TV, but you haven't physically been in the same presence as theirs. So it's a good thing to again playing in the NBA. It allowed me to meet some great people. It's allowed me to stay in touch with some of these people after all these years and have different contacts. So outside of just making money and playing on the big stage, you still have a lot of friends that you've met and you stay in contact with.
Yeah, that's great. And I also have a question about that 1991 title team and the reunion back in 2011. I'll get to that near the end of our chat, but I'm looking forward to that one as well. Now, your rookie season with the Nets, you scored double digits 27 times in 61 games played, and you had a season high of 25 points against Charles Barkley and his 76ers. So no question, you could light up a scoring column at the NBA level. Your team went 19-63 and had 2 coaching changes in that one season. How difficult was it for you to adjust to that coaching merry-go-round as you were trying to find your footing in the NBA?
It's tough. It's tough. I think if I had to do it over again, and again, you know, it's in the books. I can't do it over again. But if a guy was going through the same similar situation as I went through, I could honestly tell him how to approach it and what he should have done. And if I could do it over again, I would do things differently. But it's tough because I think sometimes you always, well, looking back, you say, well, you know what, maybe if I hadn't performed as well as I did in college, I wouldn't have been counted on to do so much for a team that had been losing for so long. And New Jersey, again, it's a good organization. It was a good organization. At the time when I was there, it had about 12 different owners. and you had people pulling in different directions. And they had been down for so long to where it was tough. It was tough on me because, again, coming from Ohio State, coming from the Midwest, I was used to winning. I was used to a friendly environment. And then I go to the East Coast, and it's not as friendly. You know, people were kind of shrewd, kind of mean. And then we weren't a great team. And I was 21 years old. And it's just something that being a 21-year-old and being on your own, it wasn't the easiest thing to deal with. But it happened. It taught me a lot. It helped me mature. But to answer that, yeah, it was very tough playing for two different coaches in a year and going 19 and whatever we did. It was very, very tough. It wore on you.
That's a really candid answer. Thank you for that. Now, your 1989 season, the second with the Nets, saw your production increase further. You had 11 games of 20 or more points, including your NBA career high, 32 points in a victory over a strong Seattle Supersonics team. The Nets improved to 26 and 56, and you had Willis Reed at the helm for the whole season after he coached the last 28 games of your rookie campaign. Now, most all of your statistical categories increased as well. What are your memories of that second NBA season, and do you recall that high game you had against the Sonics, which featured players such as Dale Ellis, Sadale Threatt, Derek McKee, X-Man, and Michael Cage?
Mm-hmm. I do recall that. I do recall because actually we were on the road. We played in Seattle.
Yep.
And again, I had games to where I felt like the old me. Mm-hmm. But then I had games to where I deferred a lot, to where I kind of deferred and took a back seat. And again, if that's one of the things that I would have done, if I could do it over again, I would have been a lot more aggressive with the basketball. I would have looked to have scored more than what I did. I think, and again, I was brought there to do that. Mm-hmm. But me and my mindset was not to be a selfish guy. Even when I averaged 29 points a game, I wasn't a selfish guy. I was a team guy. And I watched some of these kids play today, and some of these kids will shoot 35%, and they'll take 40 shots a game to score 25 points. You know what I mean? And sometimes I wish that I would have done the same thing. But I started to grow into my own. And I was being patient. And I know Willis Reed would always tell me, be patient. It's going to happen, and it's going to be something that you can look back on and laugh about. And I was patient. I was patient because again, I wasn't that type of player. But again, any progress from the season before is always good. And each year that I did play in New Jersey, I did get better each year. So, I can't complain. Everything's in the books now. And, again, it was a great time and it was a time to where it taught me how to be a man, and I learned a lot.
Yeah. Now, your third NBA season with the Nets was arguably your best as a pro. You scored double digits in 66 of 79 games played, and you averaged just under 16 points a game. However, your Nets team went 17 and 65. The new head coach, Bill Fitch, who replaced Willis Reed. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Your relationship with Bill Fitch was at times a little strained. Can you please discuss your fine individual season in contrast with your relationship with Bill Fitch at that time?
Again, it was another thing to where you sit around going into that third year, and like you just said, now another coach is getting ready to come in.
Yeah.
Okay, and being young, it was tough to deal with because now you got to learn a new system. And I think the biggest thing, Adam, with me and Bill Fitch was that he always talked about that Boston Celtic team that he coached and how this player did this and how that player did that. And I was the first drafted, and then the year after me was Chris Morris. And then the year after that, it was Mookie Blaylock. Okay, so you got three young guys.
Yeah.
Okay, and I really, me personally, I didn't really want to hear about what Larry Bird was doing or Kevin McHale or Dennis Johnson. I didn't want to hear about that. I just wanted you're here with New Jersey now. You should be coaching New Jersey and worrying about how to get the best out of your players here in New Jersey. So it was one of those things to where we kind of had words and we went back and forth. And it was unfortunate. And again, that's one of those things where if I could do it over again, I would have showed more maturity. Okay. But it's unfortunate. That was a situation where there's no do-overs. I can't do it over again. But as far as my play went that year, I was happy with my play because, again, I felt myself climbing the ladder. I felt myself getting better every year. I pride myself on trying to get better in every stat that I could each year. So I felt that I did do that. Now, the unfortunate thing was that I felt that he kind of screwed me because the trade, okay, you can trade me, but you're going to trade me away after I lead your team in scoring. And I've showed productivity each year in the league. You're going to trade me away to a team to where I'm playing behind the best player ever to play the game of basketball. And even though they had an assistant coach that was with me at Ohio State, Jim Clemens, and we're very close to this day, and we'll always be close.
Yep.
It still didn't matter because I was going to be playing behind a guy that I knew in the past when I watched Chicago, when they had Sedale Threatt playing behind Michael Jordan, or Sam Vincent playing behind Michael Jordan, and some other guys playing behind Michael Jordan. They got spotty playing time. They got spotty minutes. And I was too young to get spotty minutes, especially me leaving New Jersey that third year. After that third year leading them in scoring, I was too young to go somewhere and sit on somebody's bench. I just, and I felt that Bill Fish, he kind of screwed me with that because I'm sure he could have traded me to a number of different places, but to trade me there, I think that might have been one of those things to where I'm going to get back at it.
No, I appreciate your candor there. That's a very honest answer. Thank you very much. Now, following the 1990 NBA season, as you said, the Nets traded you to the Chicago Bulls. Can you perhaps try and talk about the transition from being that Nets leading scorer to now fighting for minutes on the Bulls as a backup to, as you said, arguably the greatest player to ever play the game in Michael Jordan? Just how was that experience trying to adjust in Chicago?
Oh, it was tough. I mean, it was tough because, everybody was happy. Friends, they're calling you, hey, man, you going to Chicago. I mean, that's a great place to go, and Chicago's great. Chicago's great. But it was tough because after that third year, Adam, I had knee surgery for one. I had knee surgery in the summer. Okay, so I was rehabbing my knee. And to go to Chicago, again, to play behind the best player, it was tough. And, people was like, be patient. He's going to teach you X, Y, and Z. And he did teach me a lot. Mike taught me a lot. And one of the biggest things that he taught me was, and actually the whole team taught me, was how to compete because practices were very, very, very competitive. Day in, day out. And in New Jersey, it just wasn't like that. I mean, I played with great guys. In New Jersey, but the practices just weren't competitive like they were in Chicago to where, a bunch of chitter chatter going back and forth, a lot of physical play, guys challenging one another. It was great. It was great for me to get back on how to win, get back to that level on how to win because they were going to push you and make you play daily and make sure you brought your A game every day. But it was tough. I mean, it was tough and to go back on my knee surgery, I rehabbed, but I came back too early. So during that year, I'm playing spotty minutes. Okay. And then the other thing was my knee was starting to act up again. I started having knee problems again. So it was very frustrating. I mean, to go from New Jersey as I would say, walking up that ladder, getting better each year to now going to a great team, one of the best teams ever, but playing spotty minutes. It was tough.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with those limited opportunities that you're talking about, what memories remain from being on that Bulls' first championship team, Dennis?
Oh, I had a lot of them. Again, I think the main thing was getting that spirit back.
Yeah.
that I was lacking in New Jersey. I got that spirit back. I really started to enjoy the game, even with the minutes that I did get. I started to enjoy the game like I did when I was, from a kid growing up into all the way to college. I started to get that feel back again. And I think the other thing was, man, the support that the Bulls get night in, night out for games, and fan support in the city in general. I mean, it was a great place. It was a great place. And then playing with a few of the best players ever to play the game. That's, top 50 players in the NBA. I mean, it was like traveling with Michael Jackson when we would go out of town. I mean, it was just a well-known team that everybody loved. So, I mean, it was just great. And then playing with good guys, it was excellent. I mean, I wouldn't pass it or trade up that opportunity for anything.
Great to hear. I guess the contrast from not putting down the fans in New Jersey by any means, but to be then moving to the Chicago Stadium, or the old Chicago Stadium, and having that raucous crowd night in, night out with a team that's obviously considerably more successful, I guess, was chalk and cheese in terms of how it was to be there and experience that crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it was a sellout every game. And at that time, the stadium was sold out 10 years in advance. You know what I mean? I mean, again, playing with a guy like a Michael Jordan, a well-recognized guy, people were going to come out and support. And I don't know, it's just playing in Chicago, you had all the support in the world. Now, it was a tough place to play. I mean, if you didn't play hard, they were going to let you know that you didn't play hard. They were going to let you know. But if you played hard, they were going to support you 100%. And it was just a great city. Chicago's a great city.
No doubt about that. Now, after only 2 regular season games in the 1992 NBA season, the Bulls traded you to the Sacramento Kings. The upside of that deal was that you had increased minutes and a much more meaningful role on the team. You returned to double-figure scoring and came off the bench for the Kings. Can you talk a little about that trade to Sacramento and your season in general playing with the franchise?
You know what? It was one of those things to where when I got the call, I was happy. I was happy about that. I was going to miss playing with a great team and great players. I was going to miss that. I knew that. But I knew I was going to get, after the trade, I knew I was going to be able to go back and kind of get my groove on. Sacramento was down and had been down. But, I played with a great group of guys and Wayman Tisdale and Mitch Richmond and Spud Webb and those guys, Randy Brown. And it was great because we still had a lot of fun. The guys on that team, we got along. We were all like brothers. We hung out. We joked a lot. We had fun. We didn't win a lot of games, but hey, it happens. But on a personal note, it gave me that opportunity. And when Phil traded me away, that's what he told me. You deserve to go somewhere where you're going to play and get back to where you were when you were in New Jersey. And I appreciate that. Appreciate him for doing that. But on a personal note, yeah, it allowed me to get my groove back. And like you said, I backed up Mitch and I backed up Spud. And I think I may have only averaged 19, 20 minutes a game. But like you said, I was scoring double figures a game. And again, fan support in Sacramento was tremendous as well. I mean, those people would come out to Arco Arena and, win, lose, or draw, they were there supporting their team. And I liked Sacramento. I had a great time.
The crowd there were certainly very supportive of their teams, no matter if they were going through good times or bad. Now, your arrival in Sacramento was just days after Mitch Richmond was also traded to the Kings as part of a deal that sent Billy Owens to the Golden State Warriors. You did mention it briefly there, but how was it playing alongside the great Mitch Richmond, a player who's regularly mentioned to be one of MJ's toughest competitors?
Mm-hmm. You know what? Playing with The Rock, playing with Mitch was great. Mitch was a great guy. Mitch is an underrated NBA guy.
For sure.
Because like you said, he was a guy that came in the league as a rookie. And I think he may have averaged 20 points as a rookie. And big body guy to where he could post you up. He could shoot the jumper. Very skilled for his size. Very, very skilled. And again, like you said, he came in a week or so before I got there. And playing with those guys and having fun with those guys, I mean, again, I wouldn't trade it for anything. How my career went in the NBA, you know what? I wouldn't trade it for nothing. It was meant to be the way it ended. And actually, I'm to blame as to not going back to Sacramento because I had a guaranteed contract on the table after that year. And messing around. They went in a different direction because I didn't take the money that was on the table. But again, that's one of those things. Hindsight, if I could do it over again, I would have had my career in Sacramento for a few years. But I wouldn't trade the opportunity that I had for that year and a few games for nothing. Wouldn't trade it for nothing.
You've got a great perspective there on your career, which is refreshing to hear. After you finished with your career in the NBA, you had a successful post-NBA career playing overseas for 7 years in locales such as Spain, France, and Israel, just to name a few. Can you talk about the opportunities that you had to play professionally outside the USA, and what do you remember of those times, Dennis?
You know what? Again, that's one of those experiences that you tell people about because a lot of people would never ever get the chance to visit Europe the way that I did. And again, I think one of the helpful things for me going over to Europe was the clubs that I played for. They were in good cities, for one, and then for two, they were good teams. So it's almost like I didn't leave the States. You know, I know some of those places over in Europe, they could be kind of tough on American players because they're playing in these small towns. But for me, it made it a whole lot easier to go over and play on great teams like I did, and then play for teams in great, great cities and, you know, surrounding cities. Like over when I was in Spain, you know, I was close to Paris, I was close to Barcelona. You know, so there was places to where I could go and I would feel just like home. I would feel just like I was in the States. And again, great basketball over there. It wasn't easy. You know, those guys were going to come out and compete night in and night out. And, you know, good clubs over there. And they definitely have great players because, as you see, a lot of players are coming over to the States to play now in the NBA. So, again, Adam, another opportunity that I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I've got a chance to experience a lot of things and see a lot of things. I'm blessed. And I can't complain about anything.
Agreed. Now, did you have a target on your back when you were in Europe? Because players who were playing against you, knowing your profile and where you've come from and what you've achieved already, did they try and go at you even harder than perhaps they may have with another player? I'm sure
they challenged me. They challenged me a lot. You know, when I first got there, I'll never forget my first game. It was against Real Madrid, I think. Okay, and they had Big Sabonis and Joe Lucas. And, you know, I just thought I was going to be able to just go over here and dominate. You know, I'm an NBA guy. I just thought I was going to be able to go over here and dominate. But that wasn't the case. I still had to figure out the European game because the European game is kind of similar to the college game, to where guys, they're good players. They're much better than college players, but they're not as athletic as NBA players. Right. So with me driving to the bucket, trying to dunk the ball on somebody, they were going to take a charge. You know what I mean? They would take a charge. They were fundamentally sound. They played the game the right way. Unlike an NBA guy, if it was an NBA guy, they were going to try to jump up and try to block your dunk. Yeah. You know, they played a little different. So now it's like you got to retrain your thought again as a basketball player playing over in Europe because, again, it was a little different than playing in the NBA. It was a little different. So, yeah, a lot of guys would try to come at me and use different tactics to knock me off my game. And actually, some of them succeeded in doing that. I mean, I had an attitude. I would get mad, and they knew how to press my buttons. So some of them succeeded, but once I settled down and came into myself, you know, I was a big-time scorer over there as well. So, again, all of it's a learning thing. Once you get a feel for it, you learn and you go out there and do your job. Yeah, and it's also good for your competitive nature as well to be challenged night in, night out as well. Yeah. Now, a teammate of yours at Ohio State, who you mentioned a couple of times in the interview, who also played in the NBA and for the Chicago Bulls, amongst other teams, is Brad Sellers.
Do you mind talking about your relationship whilst playing together in college? Because I believe he was captain of the Ohio State team in one season, and then you followed as captain the following season.
Mm-hmm.
How was your relationship during your playing career, and do you still keep in touch now?
Yeah, me and Brad is like my big brother because he's a couple years older than me. And it's funny how we met. We met at camp. I was at a 5-star camp, and he was a counselor there. And actually, he was playing for Wisconsin at that time. And we just kind of met. And when he transferred from Wisconsin to come into Ohio State, he had to sit out. And actually, my junior year, he was a senior. We were roommates. We had a townhouse together. And we became very close. And Brad, again, was a guy that I looked up to. And he was a guy that I could call and ask questions because I knew people, but I didn't know other people that I could call and ask them questions about the NBA and different things, what to look for, what not to look for, what to do, what not to do. I knew guys, again, but I couldn't pick up the telephone and call them and ask those type of questions. But Brad was that big brother to where if I needed to know something, I could easily pick up the telephone and call him, and he would give me advice on whatever I needed advice on. And like I said, to this day, we're still close. We talk probably once a week.
Great to hear. Now, interestingly, the careers of yourself and Jim Clements have many different links. You both played for OSU. He coached you at Ohio State and was also later an assistant coach when you played with the Bulls. Can you please just talk about your relationship with Coach Clemens over the years?
Me and Coach Clem, we're still close. Me and Coach Clem probably talk once every 2 weeks. We make sure. Actually, I just texted him a couple of days ago. Clem is a keep it real guy. You know what I mean? He was the type of guy that was going to tell you what you might not want to hear at that time, which was fine because he was a player. He was a player, and he knew what it took to be a good player. And again, he helped me a great deal, and he was just that guy that would encourage me. He was close to my family. You know, he would pick up the telephone and call my family if he needed to, be it good or bad. But he was that guy that kind of kept me in line in Chicago and just told me, you know, to keep working. The same things that I preach now, he preached to me back in the day that I didn't really understand what he was saying, but now I fully understand it, and I'm preaching the same language to these kids that I'm coaching here now at Bowling Green. So again, he was just that guy that, you know, we became very close. We're still very close. We still talk. And to this day, we're still knocking heads, not knocking heads, but just kind of going back and forth on different things on, you know, what should be done in this situation, what should be done in that situation. So great guy. Never had any complaints about Coach Clem. And like I said, we're still close to this day.
Great to hear. That's good. In 2006, you returned to college to complete your degree. A wonderful achievement. You were close to finishing the degree back in 1987. Can you please just talk about the importance that you placed on finishing what you had initially started and how it has benefited your life since?
Well, it was two reasons as to why I wanted to finish. The one was for my parents, you know, because that's what I went to school for, to get my degree. And then the other one was for my son, because I have a son that's 26 years old, and I wanted to get my degree before he got his degree. And it was one of those things to where I was an NBA scout with the 76ers for a year with Randy Ayers. And, you know, I said to myself, I always said I never wanted to be a college coach. But then as time went on and I saw so many kids I felt being shortchanged by guys coaching them that really didn't understand what was going on, and kids that were so far behind in their development when it came to basketball to where I wanted to become a college coach. And I went into, you know, I talked to the head scout, which was Tony DeLeo in Philly at the time, and let them know, hey, you know what, I want to be a college coach, but I knew at the time I didn't have my college degree, so I couldn't be a college coach. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to school, find out what I need to graduate, and I'm going to make it happen. And what happened was Clark Kellogg, he started a rule, some type of rule they started to where if you hadn't graduated from college and you were an ex-athlete, there was money set aside to be used to help ex-athletes graduate.
Okay.
So went back and talked to my counselors and new counselors at the school, and they told me what I needed. They told me I was a year and 2 quarters away, and I committed myself to that year and 2 quarters full time. I mean, full time, sitting in the classroom with people like Ted Ginn and some of the other guys, sitting in class with them. But I got it done. And when it's funny, Adam, because when they told me I was 40 years old, or 39, 40 years old, when they told me I was a year and 2 quarters away, it's kind of like, man, that seems like a long time. A year and 2 quarters to be opening books, doing homework and studying and taking tests. That seems like a long time. But I said, well, every day that passes is going to be another day that you could have been in school. So I went back and I knocked it out and got it done. And I'm going to tell you, that's the best feeling. That's right up there with being drafted in the NBA. That's the best feeling that any person could ever have when you graduate from college. I mean, sometimes when I'm driving in the car, I think about when I graduated from college. It's just something that I know that I will always have, that will never, ever be taken away from me. Can't be taken away from me.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it shows your commitment to wanting to achieve what you first set out to do many years prior. So congratulations again. You're now in your 4th season as an assistant coach at Bowling Green State University. Your squad is coming off a dramatic win against Eastern Michigan yesterday. Do you mind just talking about your experiences with BGSU and the lessons you've learned as coach, in contrast to being a floor leader, particularly on the college level as well?
Coaching is a little different today than I'm sure than what it was in the past, because you got a different breed of kid, or kids, I should say. And now I think as a coach, your approach is going to be different. I know, and I use Gary Williams. Gary Williams is very, very tough. Okay, Gary Williams was an up-in-your-face type of coach, to where he can be in my face from the first guy all the way to the 14th guy, okay, and we would all probably respond the same way. I think now the game has not the game has changed, but the players have changed. Now you have to really, before you say something to a player, you really need to turn around to see who that player is, because all players are not going to respond like a Gary Williams jumping on 14 guys the same way. You have to approach each player different. And if it's player A, I might be able to scream at. Player B, I might not be able to scream at, because he might go in the shell and he might not want to play. You know what I mean? So it's a different type of breed in regards to the kids. It's really taught me, and I think coaching my AAU programs, it's really taught me a lot of patience, because some time ago, when I first started coaching or saying or figuring out that I wanted to be a coach, I always looked at some of the kids that I coached, and I couldn't understand why they couldn't do certain things, because I was able to do it. And you can't be that way as a coach. I think, if you, just because you were capable of doing it, other people might not be capable of doing it. But what you have to be able to be as a coach is you have to be able to teach, and you have to be able to develop kids. And again, some of these kids that's coming into your program, they're not fully developed because some of them are undercoached in high school. So sometimes as a coach nowadays, you got to take a couple steps backwards in order to move forward. And I know back in the day, if you weren't advanced enough for a certain level, schools would pass up on you to try to find or go after that kid that was developed to play on your level. And now you find a lot of coaches now getting players that might not be capable of playing on your level right away, but it's more of a development to where hopefully they can develop you into being able to compete on that level that they're recruiting you for. So it's a little different ball game. And coaching has taught me a lot of patience. It's taught me to approach each kid differently. And at the end of the day, you want to be able to get the most out of the player that you're coaching. So again, you got to know who you're dealing with. You got to see their flaws. You got to see what their needs are, and you got to develop on and off the court.
Excellent answer and plenty of good insight there. Thank you. In March 2011, we'll get back to your Bulls career here for a moment. In March 2011, the Bulls' first NBA championship team from 1991 was honoured at the United Centre. The late Jim Durham called your name out first and you walked onto centre court amid the euphoric Bulls fans in attendance. Can you talk about that ceremony and, looking back, your part in history on that Bulls' first title team?
Oh, it was the best. The ceremony was the best. I know when I hadn't seen some of the guys in so long. I hadn't seen them in so long, and Michael being one of the guys that I hadn't seen. And I know when he first saw me, he was like, "Man," he's like, "I'm glad that you made it because I hadn't seen you." And some of those guys, it's they've changed. They've gone from being a cut, lean, strong athlete to putting on weight. Different careers, family guys, got kids, a wife, doing different businesses, that sort of thing. So it was the best time. It was the best time, and it just brought back so many memories. And again, when Jim announced the names and you walked out on the court, it just kind of sent chills through your body because again, you got that respect from the fans that you got years ago as a player, but now they're just recognizing you and respecting you for what you've done for the program years ago, and it just sent chills through your spine. So, I mean, it was great, man. It was with me playing the minutes that I played in Chicago and only being there a year and a couple games. Man, I felt like I had been there for years. I mean, it was great. It was great.
Fantastic to hear. I love just hearing these insights about things that people have experienced as past players and greats of the game at different levels. Now, I'm sure you're aware of the online blog movement last year to have your Ohio State number retired to the rafters. With the exception of the former great John Havlicek, OSU has a prerequisite that a number will only be retired for National Players of the Year, an award that you placed third in 1987 behind future Hall of Famer David Robinson. As the college's all-time leading scorer and your name stamped on many different records and achievements, what's your take on the drive to get your number retired, Dennis?
You know what? I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. I love my university. I don't think it's fair. I think that I played. Let me say this. I think that I've done something that I bet you it'll be far and few guys that's going to ever average 29 points a game on the level that I did it. This is not like it's on a Division II level. We're talking about Ohio State University. We're talking about Big Ten basketball, and we're talking about 29 points a game. So that means that if you had a game of 25, then you needed to have 32, 33 the following game. You know what I mean? So again, it's something that I think it's going to be very tough for a college player to do. I think it's going to be very tough, and I think that for me, Adam, honestly, my frustrations don't really. It's not just for me. It's not just for me. I think for the people that started the movement, it's for me. Okay, but my frustrations are that I feel that there's too many great players that's passed through Ohio State University. And I can sit here and I can mention a whole bunch of them. And again, to have very few numbers and names in that rafters out of all the guys that's passed through an institution like Ohio State, I don't think it's fair. I just don't think it's fair. And to put a stipulation on or criteria on being National College Player of the Year, I think that should be changed. I really do. Because in my situation, now I look at my situation, you're looking at the great David Robinson. Again, you're talking about David Robinson. All right. You're not just talking about a run of the mill guy. You're talking about David Robinson, top 50 NBA guy, all right, a Hall of Fame NBA guy. Okay, so in regards to me, hey, and David Robinson, you're going to shortchange me from having my number retired because of me not being able to beat David Robinson out for Player of the Year. I just personally, I don't think it's fair. I just don't. I don't think it's fair. I think the rule needs to change. I know they talked about what they were going to do, starting with football, is not retire the number, but hang the number and allow guys to wear it because they feel that if they retired a lot of numbers, they would run out of numbers. And you know what? I understand. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. All right. So, but I do think that, again, outside of myself, there's been too many Ohio State greats, be it in a lot of different sports, that people should be recognized by their efforts and their performance. And then the other thing, too, I'm going to be honest, we go to school to get an education. That's first and foremost. All right. I got my education as well. I graduated from your, I got a degree. Okay. It's not all about my play. I performed and I got a degree. I did both, and I think I should be recognized for that. I honestly do, because a lot of kids don't graduate, and they're being recognized, and it's supposed to be academics, athletics, not athletics and academics. It's supposed to be academics and athletics, and I just don't think it's fair. I just don't.
Yep, spot on, and a fantastically open and honest answer. Thank you again. Now, just before we wrap things up, I'd just like to ask you about today's modern NBA. Do you follow the league with interest? And if so, do you have a particular team that you do like to follow, or does it come back to the franchises that you end up playing for?
I've always been a Laker fan, always. Again, my idol was Magic Johnson when he was at Michigan State. I just, I got a lot of love for him. And I'm a Laker fan. I'm still a Laker fan, but I'm also a Chicago Bull fan. I like the Bulls. I like what the organization is doing. I think they have a great future ahead of them. Unfortunate what happened with Derrick Rose. So I think once they get him back, it'll be one of those premier teams. But if I had to answer your question, I would have to say it was the Lakers and the Chicago Bulls. I mean, I think that, these kids today, man, hey, there's some real players. The game has changed a lot. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of the game has gone to like that up and down game. Unlike when we played, I thought it was more of a tougher game because everything was half court. You had to do everything in the half court outside of the Lakers running. But now you got these kids, man, LeBron James, and I mean, these kids, man, Derrick Rose and Kevin, these kids can play. These kids can play, man. And you got a lot of guys doing some great things on these NBA teams.
Definitely. And do you have a particular pick for who you think might win the title this year? Or is it too hard to call at this stage?
I think it's too hard to call, but you can't put anything. We already know that Miami Heat, if they can stay healthy, again with LeBron James on the floor, anything could happen. He can win a game by himself, or he'll die trying to do it. But then you have to look at the OKC. They're a tough team with the players that they have. But again, you're talking NBA basketball, and you're talking great teams. You're talking great individual players. So anything can happen on any given night. But if I had to say so, I mean, LeBron James and them in the Miami Heat is probably going to be the team to beat.
Fair call indeed. Now, Dennis, I'm most grateful for your time today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I feel really honoured to have a chance to speak with you, and I wish you good luck in the future.
Yep, thank you, Adam. Take care, man. Anything you need, let me know. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and share my web address with your friends and colleagues, inallairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter @inallairness. Please visit the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show.